Hey everyone, welcome back to the show. We're keeping it real. Ghost right, welcome back to Real Take Sports Talk. What's poppin', as Johnny would say. Just gonna be me today, going over the latest and biggest news in sports all around the world. We are live here on YouTube. Johnny G and Andrew are unfortunately indisposed at the moment, or disposed, whichever one is correct. But we're going to be talking a lot about the NBA playoffs, some of the big names that are involved in that. We're also going to be talking about the Julio Jones trade that sent him to Tennessee. Was it worth it for the Falcons? Was it worth it for the Titans? How is that going to play out? We'll talk about that. We'll also discuss the update, the biggest and latest, and perhaps the biggest update of the offseason as far as Gardner Minshew news is concerned. Also going to be talking about Christian Eriksen and that whole incident that happened in the UEFA championship game. We're also going to be talking about Nikola Jokic's ejection, mini camps possibly ending in the NFL, and of course, because this has apparently become a weekly thing now, fights in sports, because fans cannot control themselves at all. Every week I feel like we get a new fight, but we'll talk about all of that. In the meantime, though, I really strongly urge you all to like, share, subscribe, hit that notification bell so you get notified whenever a new video is released. We got daily videos, not just this show, also Real Take Wrestle Talk, updating you on all the latest in wrestling. Also going to be coming out with some new content, new shows possibly. That might be a little bit away from sports, but are still going to be entertaining as well. We had some issues with the audio, I think, with the stream rather last night with the NXT in Your House stream. Those issues should be fixed, but do let me know if there is any problems, and I'll try to fix those as we go here. But shouldn't happen anyway. As you can see by this lovely graphic, we're going to start things off hot by talking about Gardner Minshew. And as many of you know, Gardner Flint Minshew might possibly be the most underrated player in the NFL. This is a man who has thrown for many more touchdowns than he has interceptions. This is a person who has completed 60% of his passes. This is a person who possibly should have beaten, at least in my opinion, Kyler Murray in his rookie year for Rookie of the Year. Now, that's all gone and past. But as this offseason winds down, as we've seen teams sign quarterbacks, draft quarterbacks, it means that there's less places for Minshew to be. So today I'm going to talk about, some of the last-ditch efforts we could see to get Minshew away from Jacksonville, potentially in a starting role, most likely in a backup, or at least competing for a starting role. We're going to talk about that, but in what is perhaps the biggest Gardner Minshew update of the offseason, it is my sad duty to report that the mullet of Minshew has been shaved. As you can clearly see from this picture posted on Instagram, Gardner Minshew's mullet, the mullet he has sported for over a year, has been cut from his head. He is now just, he's got a fade going there, and it's a pretty good fade, but man, This is a dark day for the NFL, knowing that the mullet of Minshew has now seemed to have passed. And, we all thought, we saw those pictures earlier in the offseason with Gardner Minshew. He's sporting the mullet. He was sporting the swag, all the leather jacket and all that. We all thought that this was going to be a new and improved version of Gardner Minshew. Alas, we've come to find out that the mullet is gone. We've come to find out that the Jags drafted Trevor Lawrence, and now a lot of other teams have picked up a lot of other options at quarterback, as I said. So that leaves the question, where does Minshew land? And I think that the question of where does Minshew land, it depends on a few different factors. One, you could easily say the Saints, because I do believe the Saints, no matter what anyone tells you, no matter what we might hear or see from training camp or what the contract situation is with Taysom Hill, no matter all of that, I do believe that that's a team that's still going to be in play until we see what these two and Jameis Winston and Taysom Hill have to offer in the preseason. Until then, Gardner Minshew, I still think is a viable option for a trade, because he's very much similar to Drew Brees in some ways. and whether it be his accuracy, whether it be, his like that sneaky little bit of mobility, even though a lot of people said towards the end Drew Brees was pretty much a statue. Brees, like during his best years, did have a little bit of mobility, more than you would think. So, given all of that, given that Minshew is someone who's proven he can come in and he can run an offense, he can come in and be probably the best game manager in the NFL. I think that offers a lot to teams. And I'm saying, Jim, that game manager is just what we've seen. I think Gardner Minshew has potential to be a very high-level player in the NFL. The issue is every time he seems to be taking a step forward or get a chance, he's either on a terrible team, and the coaches bench him or what have you. Something always happens. But again, that's the NFL. It's the nature of the beast. But the Saints are a team that I could still see him going to. Another team that I could see, and this might surprise some people, I could very well see the Denver Broncos. And this is only if they don't get Aaron Rodgers. If Aaron Rodgers isn't in orange and white to start the season here in Denver, I think the Denver Broncos, it would behoove them, given the talent that they have around them in that quarterback position, given that defense, and given, Vic Fangio, I believe he's coaching for his career at this point. Given all of that, you need to bring in someone who can light a spark in that team. And we saw Minshew do that in his rookie year. And that's why I think Gardner Minshew to the Broncos could be a viable option. That Broncos team, I talked about it. They have Cortland Sutton. They have Jerry Jeudy. They have Noah Fant. They have improved their offensive line. That defense is not going away right now. This defense is still pretty good. So there's a lot to offer there. I think my stream just went out. I don't know what it is. I don't know what it's been lately. Been having trouble with the stream. But yeah, no, I think Gardner Minshew still has a lot to offer all of these teams. And to say that, the Broncos, they should stick with the guy that they have. They should stick with Drew Lock. The Broncos shouldn't stick with Drew Lock if they struck out on Aaron Rodgers. No, you go for what you can. Vic Fangio, you're coaching for your career. Your job is on the line. If there's not improvement this year, if you don't make the playoffs, you're done. And this guy, while a lot of people might not think it, could very well possibly be the answer. On a good team, surrounded by really good pieces, maybe pick up an offensive lineman, Gardner Minshew can do some damage in Denver. They're not going to beat the Chiefs. Yet, maybe. They're not going to beat the Chiefs. They're not going to win the division. But can the Denver Broncos, led by Gardner Minshew at quarterback, compete for one of the 7 playoff spots? Absolutely. He absolutely will make this team better by coming on there, because the Broncos are a team that, there were, for a long time, a lot of people thought they're a quarterback away. They're a quarterback away from winning. They're a quarterback away from being relevant. And, look at some of the quarterbacks they brought in the past. You had people like Joe Flacco. You've had people like Drew Lock, Paxton Lynch. These are not people who are proven to the level of Gardner Minshew even. So to say that, Gardner Minshew might be a step down too, I think is a fallacy. Because time and again, Minshew has proven that he is someone who can do damage. He is someone who can be productive, when he's not stymied by his head coach, when he's not stymied by the lack of productivity on offense. So, again, that's where I've always stood on Minshew. That's where I'm always going to stand on Gardner Minshew. I think we're having stream trouble again. Be right back. Okay, so we're just gonna ride with this, I think. But hopefully it doesn't mess up again. I'm sorry, I don't know what's been happening. I thought it was the internet, and again, I'm getting a signal that something might be wrong. But I thought it was the internet at first. It doesn't seem to be that. It seems to be something else, maybe. But I'll get that sorted out hopefully soon. But we'll just ride it out from here. If it goes down again, it goes down again. That is what it is. It happens, right? It's our show business, pal. Nobody on here would get that reference. Anyway, we're going to move on and talk about a big trade that happened in the NFL just last week and what it might mean for the NFL moving forward. Julio Jones, one of the biggest names in the NFL, Julio Jones was traded to the Tennessee Titans. The Atlanta Falcons agreed to trade their star wide receiver to the Tennessee Titans on last Sunday. In exchange, they received a second-round pick in 2022, a fourth-round pick in 2023, and you gotta think, just initially looking at what they got, what the Falcons got for this trade, you gotta think they could have gotten more. For a talent like Julio Jones, for only accepting a second-round pick and a fourth, or it was a sixth-round pick. For only accepting a lower draft pick and a second-round pick, that's what? Huh? What? It's mind-boggling, honestly. It is quite mind-boggling because Julio Jones is someone who he has first-round value for the Titans. He's someone who's going to come in there and make an immediate difference for that team, and we'll get to what he's going to mean for the Tennessee Titans. But the Falcons are absolutely ludicrous to have made this trade. The Falcons traded Julio Jones for a second-round pick and a fourth-round pick. Last time I checked, a second-round pick plus a fourth-round pick does not equal a first-round pick and does not equal someone to the talent of Julio Jones. I've covered that, right? But if you're the Falcons, you're telling me there was nobody else. There was nobody else who would have offered a first? Because we were hearing for a long time. A lot of people were saying that the Falcons are getting first-round compensation potentially. The Falcons are getting first-round offers from a lot of people for Julio Jones. And that didn't materialize, apparently. And if you want me to be quite honest, you're the Tennessee Titans, and you're a Titans fan. If you're Andrew sitting back and watching this, you're happy as hell. You are elated at the fact that you got someone like Julio Jones' value for a pretty cheap price, a second-round pick. Like, what were the Titans? The Titans love to draft terrible draft picks, right? They love to draft terrible draft picks. Like, just look at some of their draft picks. Their first rounder from last year, hell, he's not even in the league anymore. Think about that. So they love red flags. So I think, them giving away even a first-round pick wouldn't have mattered if they got Julio Jones, someone who's proven in the NFL, someone who is proven to not to have, off-the-field issues, someone who's proven to be a leader, to be productive every single year he's in the league. The Titans should be happy. And you know what else they're getting from Julio Jones? They are getting someone who's going to make their offense potentially like right up there with the Ravens, right up there with the Chiefs as far as most dynamic and explosive offenses in the league. And the reason for that is they had Derrick Henry in the backfield. So once you combine Julio Jones, who's going to take a lot of coverage on one side, and A.J. Brown, who's going to take a lot of coverage on the other, you combine that with Derrick Henry in the backfield, that is a dangerous combination to have, because your defenses are not going to know what to do. It's going to be a lot like when they're facing Lamar Jackson, and this is when Lamar Jackson is at his best, like in that Monday night game against the Browns last year. It's going to be like that every single week for the Titans, because whether they run the ball or whether they do play action, like Ryan Tannehill, by the way, is one of the best quarterbacks off play action. That's going to be dangerous. A brutal play-action game for whatever defense is playing them. So you combine that with what the Titans already have, you combine his talent, what he's going to bring, the leadership, the fact that he's already beloved by most of the people in the locker room, that A.J. Brown, his teammate, who's also a wide receiver, was willing to give his jersey number to Julio Jones, and Julio Jones was very modest about it. He said no. Combine all of that. This is a team that's going to be running on all cylinders next year. The gears are going to be churning, and the only people that can stop them are themselves. The Titans will be their own undoing if they don't win next year. Because I know there's been a lot of talk about all the memes, like, oh, man, Tennessee's like, hey, like Julio Jones coming to Tennessee, like, hey, it's like, you guys lost in a wild card round this year, or last year, get ready to lose in a divisional round this year. Like there's a lot of talk of those memes. Those are nonsensical. Those don't make any sense. This team has gotten immensely better. Immensely better. I know they lost Jonnu Smith, but I think Julio Jones coming in there, and plus some of the talent they've already had, is going to make up for that emphatically. And look, the only question mark that I think for me is left on this team would be Ryan Tannehill. And it's not so much of a question mark after last year. It's like a fading question mark at this point. But Ryan Tannehill is someone who, we know what he's done in Miami. We don't have to retread that. But last year he threw 33 touchdowns, 7 interceptions, also ran for 7 touchdowns. He had a great year. And now he has to go out there and prove that it wasn't a one-hit wonder. It wasn't a one-year wonder. Ryan Tannehill has to take another step to prove that he's here to stay. And Julio Jones is going to be very important in that development. He's going to be very important in the elevation of this entire team. So again, if you're a Titans fan, be happy, be elated. You guys should be going to Tennessee and just flowering your GM at the fact that he was able to pull off this heist, this swindling of the Falcons. And if you're a Falcons fan, man, I don't know what to tell you. Look, Calvin Ridley is a damn good player. Calvin Ridley is a damn good player if you're a Falcons fan and you're looking for some hope. Matt Ryan is still a pretty good quarterback. Pretty good. He's a great quarterback, right? But man, big bang a rebuild off of that team. That team's not gonna be great for a few years at least. And it's sad because when you think about the Falcons, the big question is, did they waste Matt Ryan's career? On one hand, it's very easy to say yes because they didn't get a Super Bowl. Regardless of having Matt Ryan on that team, regardless of having Julio Jones on that team, and Roddy White on that team, and having John Abraham and all those boys on defense for the early years. Despite all of that, they were not able to win a Super Bowl. They got to one, which I think it's better. It doesn't make them a complete failure. Because if they had not even gotten to the Super Bowl, if they had just been stuck in that same rut of, not winning playoff games, which Matt Ryan and the Falcons for the past few years have been much known for, if they were stuck in that same rut for that period of time, very easy to say that they're a failure. But I think that Super Bowl appearance, regardless of how they lost, we don't have to retread that, but regardless of how they lost, it makes this team, this era of Falcons football, not a complete failure. And I think that you have to also look at some of the players who never got to a Super Bowl. Barry Sanders, Calvin Johnson, like those are players that never even got to a Super Bowl. This team did. And that is an accomplishment regardless of what we want to say, right? That being said, it doesn't mean that, they optimized their talent. This team wasn't winning playoff games for a long time. Matt Ryan didn't win a playoff game until, I believe, his 4th or 5th year in the league. It was the same year Joe Flacco, his draft contemporary, went out and won the Super Bowl. And Joe Flacco, up until that point, Joe Flacco's first 5 years, he won at least a playoff game every single year. Matt Ryan didn't. And I don't, and a lot of people want to blame Mike, the coach Mike Smith. A lot of people want to blame Dan Quinn. A lot of people want to blame the defense, whatever. It was the team. No matter what, they got fired Mike Smith. They hired Dan Quinn. They got better on defense. They got worse on defense. They got better on offense. They got worse on offense. Didn't matter. Nothing worked. And that's why they're rebuilding right now. And that's why Matt Ryan could be on the trade block coming next year. That's why Art Smith, who I thought was one of the best coaches coming out into this head coaching class of free agency. That's why Art Smith, his tenure with the Falcons might be worse than a lot of people predicted. And that's just the nature of the beast. Like I said, the NFL is a cutthroat business. And when you don't win, and you don't win consistently, and you don't deliver on the investments that people make, doesn't matter who you are, you're done. You're out of here. And that's just how it is, whether we like it or not. As fans, as whatever, it doesn't matter. It is a what have you done for me lately, and lately the Falcons have done absolutely nothing, which is why Julio Jones wanted out, which is why Matt Ryan is probably going to want out after next year, and in similar fashion, I believe, in what Matt Stafford went through this year. And it's why this team is going to be in rebuild, I believe, for the next at least 3 years. And they need to figure things out. Art Smith, man, I wish you good luck. I genuinely wish you good luck with this dumpster fire you're walking into. And, again, that's just keeping it real. So, Falcons fans, I apologize for the harshness, but that's just how it is, man. It's not going to be fun. It's not, even with the 17 playoff, it's not going to be fun being a Falcons fan over the next few years. But yeah, moving on. Let's talk about this, because this was something that I think is very important that happened in the sports world that we need to discuss. And I do think it needs to be, it's an interesting conversation, so. While I'm setting that up, remember to like, share, subscribe, hit that notification bell, guys, so you get notified whenever a new video is released. We got Real Take Sports Talk, Real Take Wrestle Talk on the channel, live videos every day, daily videos, I should say. So be sure to check all of those out. Let's talk about soccer, or as many other people call it, football. I'm going to call it soccer because I'm, for all intents and purposes, American. No, but let's talk a little football today, because this was a big story out of the UEFA Championship Tournament. But just pull this up. All right, so Denmark player Christian Eriksen's condition. Sorry, 1 second. We just had to fix something. There we go. All right, sorry, there's something off screen I had to fix. So, Denmark player Christian Eriksen collapsed on Saturday in a game against Finland. He went into cardiac arrest. It was a very emotional scene. He wasn't moving. The players were worried. Players from the other teams were worried. The referees immediately called in the medical officials. Eriksen, who was 29 years old, was taken to a hospital in Copenhagen after he collapsed on the pitch in the 43rd minute. He had just played a short pass when he fell face down on the ground, and he was given medical attention, as I said, for 10 minutes. He eventually was carted off the field to a loud ovation, which was nice to see. UEFA announced shortly after that game that the game had been suspended, and it was going to be resumed later that Saturday. It resulted in a 1-0 victory for Finland, but the score really doesn't matter when you really think about what's at stake here. Denmark's players, on the other hand, expressed dissatisfaction at the position they were put in after teammate Christian Eriksen's collapse during the Euro 2020 opener on Saturday, having to decide whether to finish the match that evening or the next morning. UEFA apparently offered these players who were gathered in the dressing room right after they'd witnessed Eriksen being treated and passing out. They were offered right then and there the choice of resuming the match Saturday night or beginning again on Sunday at noon. One player from Denmark said, we were put in a position which I personally don't think we should have been put in. It probably required that someone above us had said that it was not the time to make the decision. Maybe we should have waited for the next day. So there's a lot to unpack there. First of all, we want to note that Christian Eriksen is doing better. He is in stable condition after suffering cardiac arrest in that match. We wish him the best and a full recovery, hopefully. And now we get to the question about the decision to stop the game and then resume it. So the decision to stop the game, I think, is almost universally agreed. People universally agree that the decision to stop the game was not only necessary, but it was the right thing to do. You had to stop the game at that point because a player had just gotten into cardiac arrest. You could see visibly this was not just another injury. A lot of times players go down with torn muscles or ankle sprains, whatever, right? These small injuries where they're still conscious, where they're still cognitive and awake. And when that happens, you can carry them away because those are less serious than situations like these where the player is not responsive, the player is unconscious, and where you can see that possibly his heart had stopped. He went into cardiac arrest. We don't know the details of that specifically yet, but regardless, this was a serious situation. So stopping the match in general was the right thing to do. One thing they should not have done is made the players go out and play, not knowing what the condition was of their teammate, not knowing whether he had possibly died. Which, in this situation, knowing what we know now, was very well possibly could have been the case if someone didn't administer CPR right away. Because reports are that he was apparently gone before they administered CPR. So stopping the game was obviously the right decision. And then we get into the decision of resuming the match and bringing the players back. What that Danish player said was that right then and there in the locker room after this has happened, they were told you can either resume the match later today or tomorrow. So immediately the priority apparently coming from UEFA, coming from the officials was, okay, this was terrible, but we got to resume the match. And if you were a player for Denmark, or if you're someone who has empathy for Denmark, it's very easy to see why you would be aggravated by this or insulted, because we just witnessed someone going to cardiac arrest on the field. We just witnessed something horrific, and the first thing that they get, the first piece of communication they get from UEFA is, okay, when are we restarting the match? And, he said that they probably should have waited a day or made that decision later. And I agree with that. I 100% agree with that. I know it's a business. I know that, there's TV sponsorships and TV partnerships and deals that need to be sorted out and scheduling conflicts that might need to be sorted out, right? That's all well and good. But for UEFA officials to go into the locker room right after this happened and ask the players, when are you guys ready to play? It's beyond insulting. It's, quite frankly, it's borderline just sociopathic. And it really, I think, digs into a side of sports that we don't see. Because we as fans are conditioned to seeing players break their legs, break bones, and then get carted off the field, and then other players just going back and playing like it's nothing big happened. We are conditioned to that because we are separated. There's a degree of separation, even when we're at the stadium, even when we're watching on TV, there's a degree of separation. We don't know these players personally. But if you're a teammate and you see your teammate break their leg, or you see a teammate, pass out in the way that Christian Eriksen did, your mind is going to be completely warped by what you've just seen. Imagine if you're just playing a pickup game with your friends. And pickup game of basketball, soccer, football, whatever. You're playing a game with your friends, and then suddenly someone breaks their leg. One of your friends, you see them in pain, writhing on the floor with a broken leg. Your first response isn't going to be, okay, let's get him carted off, and then let's see what when we can resume the game. No. Your first response is going to be, oh my God, let's get him some help. And while I agree, there are situations you can't stop the game for every injury, and that's not what I'm advocating for. But I'm trying to kind of build an idea of what it's like for these players when they see things like this happen. And at the end of the day, if the player is conscious, I do think that you continue with the match because one thing you don't want to have happen is someone having cardiac arrest potentially, and then the worst happening, and then you continued the match. That's not something you want to have happen. And not knowing what his condition was, not knowing what was going on right after he had collapsed, I do think played into the fact that it was right for them to stop the game. But resuming the game, man, you have to wait. You have to wait. You have to give the players time to process what they've just seen. You have to give the players time to process the fact that their friend just had a heart attack on the field, collapsed in the field, was unconscious, was gone. Got to give them time to process that, because at the end of the day, we like to, we love to talk about the spectacle of sports and all of that. At the end of the day, these are just people, just like us. At the end of the day, they are just people, and I think that they're within their right to process these things and, in whatever manner they see fit. Because, again, if we saw one of our friends or someone who's close to us go down like that, I don't think for a second anyone watching this or anyone who has a heart would immediately, sympathize with the players. Not sympathize with the players. Regardless, Christian Eriksen, we wish you the best. We hope for the best for you. Big prayers for you, dude. Let's move on and talk about the Phoenix Suns. There's a lot to get to about this team. Before we get to any of that, guys, remember to like, share, subscribe, hit that notification bell so you get notified whenever a new video is released. We got daily videos right here on the channel. We got Real Take Sports Talk on Mondays, Real Take Wrestle Talk on Tuesdays, and a lot of clipped videos in between. Also got some original content coming through the pipes that I am working on. Give me time. I promise it will get done. So let's talk about this. Here we go. So the Phoenix Suns have just swept the Denver Nuggets and are advancing to the Western Conference Finals for the first time since the 2009 season, I believe, back when they had Steve Nash, Amari Stoudemire, and they were going up against Kobe's Lakers, who were just about to repeat for their second championship. So this is a big deal. This is a big deal. It's a big deal for Devin Booker, who for a long time we've known is one of the best players in the NBA. This is a big deal for Chris Paul, who has been one of the best players in the NBA for a very long time. And as far as he ever got in the playoffs before this was the Western Conference Finals, so he's going back to try to, get rid of the demons of the past. Devin Booker never been in the playoffs before. They nearly swept the Lakers. They won that series 4-1. They swept Nikola Jokic's Nuggets, the MVP, Nikola Jokic, and the Denver Nuggets. And now they're in the Western Conference Finals. We have to see how things play out between the series in Utah and LA. That's right now tied, but the Phoenix Suns are damn good. And a lot of people are asking, are they the best team in the league right now? Are the Phoenix Suns at the top of the pecking order? Given what they've done since the bubble, like forget just this season, include what they did what Devin Booker especially did in the last few games, those last 8 games in the bubble when they went undefeated until now, it's hard to argue that this isn't the best team in the NBA. The one thing I will say, though, is I still think the Nets against this team, the Nets win in a 7-game series. And it's going to be close. It's going to be close, honestly. I do think, though, that the one thing that will help them go over is the fact that not only do they have Devin Booker, not only do they have Chris Paul, but they do have a bunch of role players and, those that DeAndre Ayton, who I think is a pretty good 3 on that team. They have people like Crowder. They have DeAndre Ayton. Like they have some ballers there. They have some ballers on this team who have been there, who are proving themselves and who I think are going to make a huge difference when it comes to defending some of the players on the Nets. That doesn't mean that they're going to, shut them down. That's not going to happen. You're never going to shut down, a great offense in the NBA these days like that. What it does mean, though, is they're going to be able to contain the Nets, which is honestly, if you're the Suns and you want to win the finals, you want to advance, or you want to get a championship, bring a championship home to Phoenix, you're going to have to contain them. Because if you don't, if it's a pound for pound, offensive showcase, and that's all it is, the Nets just have too much offensive firepower. Especially if James Harden comes back. Team's going to be OP. But when we're talking about the Suns, one thing we have to talk about too, I think, is Chris Paul. Chris Paul, in my opinion, was the X factor for this team. There's been a lot of talk about Chris Paul, whether he was in Houston, whether he was in LA, whether he was in New Orleans before that. There's a lot of talk that he will only get you so far. That bringing him in will only get you so far. We saw that the Hornets went to the Western Conference Finals with Chris Paul. The Houston Rockets went to the Western Conference Finals. I don't believe the LA Clippers went to the Western Conference Finals, but they only went so far in the playoffs. And he was never able to get to that finals. And this is a team right now that I think they could very easily beat the Clippers. They could, if they wanted to, very easily beat the Utah Jazz. This is the class of the Western Conference this year. No question in my mind. This is the class of the Western Conference. And Chris Paul and his leadership, the fact that he scored, I believe, 37 in that closeout game against the Nuggets. The fact that he's clutch, the fact that he's scoring, the fact that he's making players around him better, that young team is getting better. Devin Booker is somehow better. The fact that this is all happening shows you the value that Chris Paul has to a team like the Phoenix Suns. They didn't necessarily need to bring in another huge superstar, another big time free agent, another, 1A, 1B with Devin Booker. They brought in Chris Paul, and now they're in the Western Conference Finals, and they could very easily punch their ticket to the finals. And Chris Paul is a big part of that. Let's not discount Devin Booker. We know what he does. It's I believe, the youngest player in NBA history to have a 70-point game. That's crazy. It's insane. But that's the Suns. DeAndre Ayton took a step forward. He's not, is he better than some of the people that were drafted after him? No, probably not. But that doesn't matter. He is producing for this team. And without DeAndre Ayton, this team isn't here. These are all the pieces coming together to create a perfect storm. And I think the fact that Devin Booker might be one of the best offensive players in the game, if not the best, is going to help them out a lot against a team like the Nets if they get to the finals. I think that Chris Paul's experience, I think Crowder's experience, I think that DeAndre Ayton's defensive ability is going to make a difference. So that's going to be an interesting matchup if that happens. Now, I'm not saying that, the Utah Jazz or the LA Clippers won't win that series. But I'm not saying the Utah Jazz could be a tough outing. But this is the Suns conference. The Western Conference is owned this year by the Phoenix Suns. And the question is, can anyone beat them? I would say the Nets can. The Bucks, I don't think so. I don't see the Bucks winning that. Philadelphia, I don't know. I don't see that as a good matchup for Philadelphia either. It's the Nets. The Nets and the Suns are the two best teams in the NBA right now. If you ask me, if we had to have a matchup of the two best teams, these would be it for this year. And I give the slight edge to the Nets. And I would say Nets in 6. But yeah. So let's continue with this because I don't know. I didn't know if I wanted to talk about this, but this was something that did happen. So for those who don't know, there was I don't even know if I should talk. Should I talk about this? Okay. So Devin Booker, for those who don't know, is currently dating Kendall Jenner. And there's a piece of hot gossip about Devin Booker and Kendall Jenner that's been going around that might make some tensions and kind of bring about the Kardashian curse. And the big question is Devin Booker going to fall victim to the Kardashian/Jenner curse that afflicts so many athletes over the past 10 years? We've seen it happen to many players. We've seen it happen to Tristan Thompson, seen it happen to Lamar Odom, seen it happen to a lot of players. Even that guy who was married to Chris Humphries, who was married to Kim Kardashian. We've seen that happen a lot. But we found out something, and mind you, again, Devin Booker is dating Kendall Jenner. We found out something this week. So last year, there was this woman by the name of Eliza Jane who was on No Jumper with Selena Powell and Adam 22. If you don't know what that is, Google it. And she was talking about an encounter she had with multiple players on the Phoenix Suns. And I'm not going to go into great detail, but I will tell you that this encounter was partially people said that encounter might have been the reason that the Suns went undefeated in the bubble. Granted, that taken aside, there was a lot of talk about this encounter she had with 7 players on the Suns. And one thing that we found out recently, just in the last few days, was that, Devin Booker was, quote, first in line, according to Eliza, in this encounter they all had. And again, I'm not shaming anyone. I'm not judging. I do think it is kind of comical, right? And it's a little bit of a juicy gossip, pardon the pun. But and you got to think, man. You got to think. Knowing the Kardashian curse that has befallen so many athletes, man, if this is true, this might be the one thing that could bring the Suns down in the Western Conference Finals or even the Finals. This might be it. The Kardashian curse is powerful. Look what it did to Lamar Odom. Look what it did to Chris Humphries. No one even knows where he's at now. Look what it's done to Tristan Thompson. Like it's not a good thing. This might be bigger than the Madden curse, if you ask me. But man, this is crazy. Devin Booker, I hope it wasn't you, man. Good luck. Good luck if it was. Always nice to debrief with a little bit of gossip. Always like that. Again, if you guys haven't already, remember to like, share, subscribe, hit that notification bell so you get notified whenever a new video is released. Let's move on, and let's actually stick with the Suns series, and let's talk about something that happened in this series that's got a lot of people talking. And it's got me talking. I have a few opinions on it, and that is the ejection of Nikola Jokic. So let's get ready. Sorry, just setting up a graphic. All right, should be good. So Game 4 of the NBA playoff series between the Denver Nuggets and the Phoenix Suns took a dramatic turn when the Denver Nuggets big man Nikola Jokic and the league MVP was ejected for a flagrant 2 foul with 3 minutes left in the third quarter. Jokic took a wild swing at the Suns' Cameron Payne, hitting Payne across the face. Hitting, I think, is a strong word. He kind of grazed his face. Regardless, while trying to do a hard swipe to make contact with a loose ball. The foul came after Jokic didn't get a call on a one-handed runner that briefly glanced over at the referee and he gestured. So the Suns star Devin Booker and confronted Jokic about this. They got into a little bit of a scuffle. They were separated. After the ejection, Jokic apparently apologized to Payne. And we had some reactions from players across the league and, just superstars across the league. There was John Morant who said, playoffs, elimination game, give him a flagrant 1, play ball, man. Trae Young, a flagrant 2, wow. Russell Wilson from the NFL said, they just kicked this man out the game, ? Wow. Nick Young said Joker looks crazy, like a real Joker, like he got a couple hitmen. I'm not going to read the rest of that. And John Morant kind of put it all together and put it all into one tweet, and he said, league soft, which if you're a fan and you've been a fan of the NBA for a while, you probably agree with. So the first question is, was this the right call? Now, Nikola Jokic did wind up. you could see there was a lot of force behind this swat at the ball, and you'll see it in just a second again. But he wound up his arm, and he was trying to make contact with the ball, and my thing is, yeah, he grazed him. By the rules, he should be fouled. All right, if this was like basketball the way we all probably want it to be, that wouldn't be a foul. Regardless, according to the rules, he wound up above the shoulders. It's a foul. Now, the problem that I think myself and almost everybody else out there who's not a Phoenix Suns fan has is that this was called a flagrant 2 foul, which is more egregious, and that Nikola Jokic was ejected for it. If you watch the play, he did swat at the ball. He made contact with the nose, and regardless of that, he was making a play on the ball. So to say that this was completely malicious in intent is wrong. It's just wrong. He was not trying to hit Cameron Payne in the face. That's not what his intention was. His intention was to go after the ball. Was there frustration? Was there a little aggression behind it? Sure. But when this happens, and you see so many people, because I just read out a few tweets, there were so many people who disagree with this call. When you see so many people disagreeing with this call, you gotta think to yourself, you're the NBA. Are we maybe out of line on this just a little bit? Because don't get me wrong, the Nuggets, regardless of Jokic being in this game or not, they're not winning the series. They're not even winning this game. The Nuggets, unfortunately, their future was kind of written as soon as Jamal Murray went out. That is no, offense to Nikola Jokic, who is well-deservedly the MVP this year. Let me make that clear. But the Nuggets weren't going to win. But this is bigger than just the Nuggets. This has ramifications for the entire league, because if a play like this is called a flagrant 2, then I don't know what you want defenders to do. And this is the problem we've gotten to at this point. Are the rules that are designed to create high-scoring games and better offenses, are they better for the NBA? Because, I don't want to say Cameron Payne wasn't in pain. He was. Nikola Jokic is a big dude, and he wound up. But, for Cameron Payne to be down on the floor, it's kind of reminiscent of, LeBron James, flopping all over the place. We don't have to retread LeBron James. We all know LeBron James flops. It's true. I like LeBron, and I'm saying LeBron James is the biggest flopper in the NBA, and he's kind of brought it to the mainstream where you see all these players just flopping, trying to get a foul call, flopping, trying to get a flagrant call, just like the Oscars that would be going out to NBA players would be astronomical if they qualified for that. But the direction we're seeing the game go is players are feeling entitled to these calls at this point. They feel like if they flop, they should be entitled to these foul calls. And I think there's a reason why they do it. Obviously, they want to get fouls called because it's smart. You're putting the other team in jeopardy. You're if it's a technical, you're getting free throws. If you might get one of the best players out sooner, which again, that's all strategic, and I get that. But at the same time, for the game, it's terrible. If you're watching the game and defenders can't defend, if this is called a flagrant 2 and is an ejectable offense, what do you want defenders to do? Just stand there and watch the player shoot? You just want them to stand there and hopefully, maybe I'm tall enough to block this shot that's on an arc that's supposed to go over my head, because that's what players do now? At some point, we got to stop this shit. At some point, you have to point at this. Like refs have to look, and I'm not saying this is Cameron Payne, right? This, according to the rules, was a foul call. I've already said that. But I'm talking about LeBron James. I'm talking about all these players that flop, that very openly flop. And it's 100% contrived and fake. When are we going to start calling fouls on them? Because the direction the league is going in is that's in no way, shape, or form an offense that can be penalized. It's no way, shape, or form an offense that can be dealt with. So players are now going to want to do it more. There's no incentive not to act like you're always in pain the second someone breathes on you the wrong way. That's the NBA we're living in. That's the NBA we are currently in, and that's the NBA we're going to be in for the time to come, unless the league steps in and says, okay, we need to stop this flopping. If you get caught flopping, and it's very obvious, because it's very obvious to see when someone's flopping. Watch any time someone just points a finger at LeBron James, puts a finger on LeBron James. The dude acts like he's like, had his eye taken out, or the dude acts like his entire body is like deteriorating. It's actually laughable sometimes when you think about it. And I'm as someone who doesn't define himself as a LeBron hater, that's one thing about LeBron that I don't like, and that I think he's actually made the game worse for. Like he has made the game worse by making flopping this big and this incentivized for these players, because this is what young players are doing now. They think that's what's right, and it's wrong. And at some point, the NBA has to have a reckoning with this, or else fans are just gonna get annoyed, man. Like, will they stop watching? I don't think so, but they're gonna get annoyed, and the NBA brand, is gonna be hurt by it. So the NBA, step in. This should not have been a flagrant 2. We all know it. Adam Silver, you know it too. Players flopping should not be happening. Defensive players should be able to make a play on the ball. It's a very similar argument that you could have in football. But that's just me. That's just what I think. And again, I'm just a corny person on YouTube who likes to stir the pot. But we'll see where this goes. One thing I do want to talk about now is, hold up, as I'm pulling it up, we had a video. This was pretty funny for me. So we're gonna stick again with the Nuggets and the Suns, because that's been a theme of this episode. And we're going to stick with the fan fight that happened and the prophecy. The prophecy that was foretold by this one Suns fan. So a lot of you might have heard about this Suns fan who got into a fight with 2 Nuggets fans and foretold this prophecy. Some were calling him a prophet, by the way. This prophecy, Suns in 4. Let's take a look at this video, because I thought it was quite funny. I thought it was great. So let's take a look at it. Oh, pull it up real quick. There we go. Oh, that's not it. I just realized I was muted. This is why I hate. This is what I hate about being live. I just did a perfect thing, and I'll fix it in post. I'm sure I will. Anyway, we're just gonna end the show there. This is Johnny, Andrew. This is why I need you. I can't do this myself. But sorry about those technical difficulties. We'll come back to you next time with Real Take Sports Talk.